Hi, Kelsey and Hannah. Thank you so much for joining me today to celebrate Introduce a Girl to Engineering. It's a day that falls within Engineering Week, also known as E-Week. So today we are here to do FOR's STEM in 10 video project. FOR stands for Fostering Opportunities and Relationships in STEM Education, which falls under the Minnesota Academy of Science umbrella. So to start us off, my name is Lily Winter. I am Bolton and Make's Training and Outreach Coordinator, and I'm so excited to ask you these questions and dive into why STEM is important to you as women engineers. Would you tell me your name, what branch of STEM you currently work in, and what your job title is? Hannah, do you want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Hannah, and I am a civil engineer, and my title is Water Resources Engineer.
Awesome. How about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, I'm Kelsey Retherford. I'm a traffic engineer here at Bolton and Mink, and I'm a part of the engineering STEM branch as well.
Perfect. So what does a typical day look like at your job, and what do you like most of everything that you do?
So a typical day for me involves stormwater modeling and stormwater design. So that means kind of using software to either draw up stormwater ponds or using software to mimic the natural flow and the natural patterns of water. I really enjoy modeling. I think that's a really fun part of my job. And I also really enjoy working with other engineers and other project managers and coordinating what needs to be done for a project.
Very cool. How about you?
Yeah, I would say that what I really like about my job is that I don't have an exact typical day. I have some tasks that I do for sure, but those would include traffic modeling. So I oversee traffic modeling in various programs that would be looking at an intersection or a corridor to see how it operates with different traffic control. So how does a roundabout work? How does a signal work? How does stop control work? Or on a corridor, what happens if we take away a lane? That's probably the main thing I do, but I also am involved with looking at crash data. So I'll analyze crashes at an intersection, see what kind of trends we're seeing in the last 3 to 10 years, and then determine, looking at those different crash types, what are ways that we can reduce the crashes at the intersection? So is there something that we can do to eliminate or reduce a certain crash type?
Yeah. Well, we all use the roads to get here, so thank you for keeping us safe. What are you currently working on right now that you're super passionate about? Is there anything exciting or surprising going on in your field currently?
Yeah, it's not something that's very new in the world around us, but everything about roundabouts I think is still something that the public and other engineers maybe are still a little skeptical about. But I would say something that specifically we're looking into more would be what kind of programs within the traffic world we use to model an intersection, specifically a roundabout. So trying to figure out which program best represents real world conditions is something that we're trying to figure out today.
I remember when my hometown got our first roundabout, what a big deal it was, and now how common they are. So very cool you've gotten to see those trends throughout time. What would you say?
Yeah, something that's kind of coming up in water resources now is looking at ways we can improve our water quality by reducing the amount of salt that we use on the roads. So in Minnesota, it's very cold and icy, so we use a lot of salt every year. But once that salt enters our water systems and once it's in our environment, there's no easy way of getting it out. So now we're really kind of studying how do we reduce the amount of salt we use while still keeping it safe.
Yeah. I just saw an exhibit at the Minnesota Science Museum about that, so very topical. Where might someone see or use your branch of STEM in their everyday life?
Yeah, so being a traffic engineer and studying the ways that people bike, walk, use transit, in addition to, of course, drivers. So really anyone who is leaving their home and using any type of public facility to get around, that's definitely something that we've impacted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'd see water resources engineering every time you go out on the street and you see the catch basins collecting all of the stormwater.
Awesome. So a lot of the career fairs I go to, a lot of students ask me, when I flush my toilet, who's in charge of that? Does that fall under your sphere or is that someone else?
No, that is not a water resources engineer's job, but Good question.
Good knowledge for myself to take back to more career fairs. What experiences as a kid, a teen, or young adult made you interested in your STEM pathway and led you to where you currently are? Do you want to start us off this time, Hannah?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I grew up in northern Minnesota, and I spent a lot of times around our lakes and rivers, and I always enjoyed being outside. So I always knew I wanted to do something when I was older that would be protecting our environment and protecting our water bodies. And then as I was going through school, I kind of realized I was more geared towards the math side of things than the science side. So I decided to kind of study what engineering careers would involve water, and I found water resources engineering.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What would you say, Kelsey?
Yeah, I would say specifically my love for math. All through school, I really enjoyed my math classes. But then specifically to get me into engineering, a big impact or a big reason why I got into engineering was because my dad is an engineer. So just seeing what he does in his career kind of made me interested in engineering itself. And then specifically what got me into transportation or even civil engineering was I had a love for bridges. I just found them so fascinating. And then it was taking a transportation engineering course specifically that made me super interested in transportation engineering.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Because sometimes it does take a little bit to find your passion and find exactly where you fit in. And once you have that class, you're like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Now I know. So what did you both study in school and university? Did you have a favorite class or a favorite research project you worked on?
So I studied civil engineering, and the school I went to didn't have a specific transportation engineering program or water resources engineering program yet. So I got a civil engineering degree, but we did have a bunch of classes. So my favorite classes were hydrology and hydraulics, where we learned about open channel flow, so like rivers, and then we also learned about pipe flow.
Yeah, I would say other than my transportation specific engineering course, which really led me to where I am today, just as a freshman, I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, and they have an introduction to engineering course where they would bring in professionals from all different engineering backgrounds. They would just talk about their job, what they do, and that's really what led me initially to just civil engineering in general.
So you both have touched on STEM and studying STEM and finding that passion in math. Why do you think studying STEM is important, and why is it important to the next generation? Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think it's important because STEM for me is all about kind of using problem solving and using the principles of science and engineering and math to make the world a better place. And I mean, for civil engineers, it's all about making sure whoever uses our project, their lives are improving and their lives are safer and better because of the projects that we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Hannah said it really well. I just think that anyone who's in the STEM field, there's so many different things to go into, but those are the people that are kind of tasked with taking on a lot of major issues in the world and trying to make, just the world we live in a better place.
Yeah, for sure. During your STEM journey, has there been an important mentor or teacher who has really inspired you to pursue, the pathway and lead you to the job you're currently in?
Yeah, I would say, as I kind of touched on, my dad's an engineer, so growing up, I definitely looked up to him and wanted to be like him, and he was a great mentor for me just going through school. But then even at Bolton and Mink, I think now as an engineer in the transportation world, they've done a great job of having their own mentorship program. So I participated in that a few years, and it's been great to get to know older coworkers with many more years of experience than me, and just hear their advice for ways that I can be a better engineer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Hannah?
Yeah, my biggest mentor I think was in college. My college advisor, she really kind of pushed me, and she was really there for me to listen all the time. And what was unique about her is that she took a lot of care in finding opportunities and including me in opportunities that I would be interested in, even though our school didn't really have water resources engineering and it was a new program. Civil engineering was a new program, so she kind of took that extra step for me.
I love that.
Yeah,
there's mentors wherever we look, and I'm glad that we can tap into your knowledge base and use your knowledge as mentors for people perhaps watching this video. Speaking of accomplishments and things to be proud of, is there a pinnacle of your career or anything in your life particularly that you're proud of in terms of study or research or your work?
I would say passing the professional engineering exam to make me a licensed PE was definitely a big moment for me. I spent several months studying for the exam and then had to wait several months to even find out the results. But that has just helped me in my career, give me more confidence in the work that I do and know that, I have the tools that I need in order to produce good plans, and try to just make everything better in general.
That sounds like a lot of work, but high reward. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely one of my accomplishments is passing the fundamentals of engineering exam. So the first exam that you have to pass before you take your professional engineering exam. But also I would say something I'm really proud of is only when I just started at Bolton & Mank, I had the opportunity to work on a grant application that would secure funding for a really large floodplain and river restoration project. And we won that project, and that made me feel really proud that I was just barely out of school, but I was able to do something that big and that good for our environment.
And make that big of an impact right out of school.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So to finish us off with our STEM in 10 questions, I would love to ask both of you, what advice or words of encouragement do you have for someone thinking about entering the STEM field? I'll start with you, Hannah.
Okay, my words of encouragement are that no matter what, your unique perspective is important and valued, and your passions are valuable. And even though STEM can be really hard, especially when you get to college, don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to reach out to other mentors or people in the field, because we all want to see you succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, I would just recommend learning about the world around you. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't even consider this as a potential career for myself. So just find what fascinates you and how you can get involved in that field and really make a difference in something that you're super interested in. And I guess kind of going off of what you said too, I would just say I guess don't be discouraged. I never felt like in school I was someone who naturally understood things, or just I wasn't a fast learner. I had to really try at things. So don't be discouraged if it's something that's interesting to you, even if it's not gonna come really naturally. It's still worth putting in that effort. And if you are willing to put in the time and the effort, it's just gonna be so rewarding, and you'll be able to do something that's exciting and can actually, make a difference in the world.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you both for taking the time to meet with me and to celebrate Women in STEM. So thanks for celebrating Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.